All right, this is my first time juggling coffee bags. Every one I drop, we're gonna give away. I had a question on Questions Over Coffee. All three. Welcome to Questions Over Coffee. Today I am going to start right into a question. It comes from Weaver on YouTube, who asks, obviously what goes in your flat pack / patrol pack is dependent on the mission, but what are some things other than a hydration bladder that go into a pack regardless of the mission? Flat pack / patrol pack essentials, if you will. So what I've done is I've tried to organize these into a couple of different piles, and I'll go through these because what I would put in a pack is very similar to what I would carry in a chest rig if I only had a pack. So I wanted to kind of just make that clear. So if I was carrying something on a hike or something like that, that's a very small pack like the flat pack from Halo Strategic, even though I can unzip it and make it bigger, I'm still gonna have a condensed loadout from something like a 3-day pack that I can carry. So obviously nature abhors a vacuum, so the more room that you have, the more you're gonna fill it with stuff you probably don't need. So I try to kind of distill stuff down to essentials, but I always wind up taking stuff that I never use. However, just like when you come back from a camping trip or a mission or whatever have you, you can always separate everything into 3 piles, right? So there's, I didn't use it and I took it, right? So that's probably a reason to not take it in the future. Then there's I took it, I didn't use it, however, it's necessary, like a trauma kit, right? So you're gonna take that regardless of whether you used it or not. And then you're gonna have a pile of stuff you did use. So those 3 piles are always good to disperse stuff into, to kind of roll with, I guess kind of do a shakedown of your gear to find out what's really necessary to take. So this has been kind of my distillation over years of doing that. I've always had items that I always take no matter what. And that's typically what I have in my chest rig. So what I mean by that is that I've showed this LBT 6094 rig that I have, and I took absolutely everything except for the shears and the knife out of here. And I'll get into those 2 items when we talk about the kit. But I've even got gloves here to kind of simulate what I take for gloves. But this is empty now, so everything I pretty much take is out here on the table, and I want to just kind of go through that real quick. And this kind of pile, in my opinion, are my essentials. So these are the things that I take regardless of whether I use them or not. It's just kind of one of those situations where I don't want to be without this stuff if I'm away from my vehicle too far, or I get separated from a group while we're hiking or something like that. It's stuff that I will always personally have with me because I've distilled that stuff down to its essentials. And then I'll go through kind of what is in my pack that's not in those essentials. And that's the way I look at those line items, because you really should kind of look at it as lines. The military does that. You've got a line 1, which is everything that's on your body. If you threw away your pack or your chest rig or something, you're just left with the clothing you have on, maybe your hat, and whatever you have stuffed in your pockets. That's line 1. Line 2 is like a chest rig or something like that. Or in this case, it might be a small backpack, even though a backpack is technically line 3. So line 3 would be kind of your bigger items that you couldn't really fit within the scope of a second line. So again, just going through this stuff, I'm going to kind of breeze through this really quick because I know I've already eaten up a lot of time trying to explain this, but as I mentioned before, you got a trauma kit. So this is what I figure is essential. I also usually have trauma shears with this, as well as a tourniquet. Those are just kind of my 3 staple items for a trauma kit. Now, I've always also got a boo-boo kit. So these are kind of my essentials. I mean, I helped build the kit. So these are what I figure are essentials for first aid. So this is my first aid kit. That always goes with me as well. So boo-boo kit, trauma kit, supplies. That's kind of pretty big for me. Those kind of essentials are truly essentials for me. And then I've got my survival kit. So this is a larger survival kit. This is our MSK, our mini survival kit, in one of our hard, rigid containers that you can use as a shovel too. So it has more space in it. Therefore, nature abhors a vacuum. I've put more stuff into this. So even though I carry something like a set of our Bogota pipe picks in addition to that, I also have picks in here too, and things like that. Fire starting materials that don't normally come in the survival kit. And then I've also got a GPS on me. I just always have a GPS. I don't like depending on my phone to figure out where I am. So this is the Garmin Fortrex 401. I haven't used the newer models yet. I'm still pretty sold on the 401 and how well it works. And then with that, I've always got spare AAA batteries for that. So I always take these battery containers if I can fit them. If I can't, I'll typically condense these. So these are our store cell battery containers that we sell on the store. I like them because even though they make a little bit of noise when they rattle, they'll fit into a lock sack bag, and I don't have one in front of me. Typically what I'll do is I'll throw all three of these things in one of our smaller lock sack bags that we sell, just so they're waterproof and protected when I'm out in the elements. And again, these are all lithiums, and hopefully I don't have to sell you on using lithiums. They won't corrode your stuff, and they last better and last longer and are less susceptible to heat and cold temperature fluctuations. So then I've typically got a pair of gloves. Usually they're lightweight gloves. Unless it's cold outside, I'll throw some warmer gloves in there. And then I've also typically got at least something to get me back to civilization. So I'll typically have a local area map that's waterproof in a lock sack. I've always got a protractor with me, and then something to write with, pencil, eraser, Sharpie, and a pen, and a little mini Bic lighter. Those are just kind of things that I take. Yes, they may be kind of luxury items, but I like to throw them in. I've always typically got a waterproof notepad that I can write with that Write in the Rain pen. And then on the signaling kind of side, I've got a space blanket that I kind of vacuum sealed that I carry with me. I've also got one of the MPILs from Battle Systems, and this is the smaller one, and I'll mention that in a second why it's smaller. Then I've also got a headlamp. I can't say enough good things about having a headlamp readily available. It's one of those items that is crucial when it gets dark. I can't express how much a headlamp is important. And again, I carry backup batteries for the headlamp, so make sure you got those. And then I've always also got a compass along with the navigation stuff. This is the Sunto Global Compass, the MC2. I love that thing. And then I've also typically got some kind of chem lights with me, and obviously if I'm not wearing nods, the IR chem lights are not super important. However, you never know who's got what on them, so this is my little homemade thing with type 1 paracord where I can buzz saw either a IR chem light or a regular yellow chem light, and backup chem lights. And then I've also always got a multi-tool. I like the SOG Power Lock. That's kind of my go-to multi-tool. This is an older model, but still good, and I typically have this dummy corded onto my kit. That's why you see that, as well as the compass. These are always dummy corded items, and a radio, which is always dummy corded too. So if I'm talking to people, I typically always have this because I have the local weather stations programmed into this, and that's something you can do as well. And then I typically have some kind of waterproof bag. This really typically isn't a waterproof bag, even though it's lined on the inside. This is from Cry. Actually, yes, it is lined on the inside. So there's water resistance to this bag, and it can also be used as like an SSE bag, if you know what that is. It can hold things if you need it to, but it folds up really small, which is why I like it, and I carry it in my kit, in my line 2. But if I've got room in a small pack, I'll typically take a true waterproof bag that can hold stuff, so I can put the contents of my entire bag into this in case it starts raining or I have to cross a stream or something like that. So that's always good to have in case you need it. And that's pretty much the contents of what I would keep in a smaller pack. It's a big pile. I know it sounds like a lot, but that is what I would take with me, and that's what I have distilled down to kind of my essentials. The only thing I didn't mention is kind of what's in my pockets. My phone, I'll have a pocket knife, that type of stuff. And if I have the room, I will typically carry my more fire knife. That's more of a larger backpack kind of thing, a fixed blade knife. But that's kind of how I run that. And the only changeover from the items I just went over that are in my chest rig are firearms related stuff. So I will switch out my SOG power lock with a multitasker. I've also got the bits taped up that go with that. I've also got board brushes, I've got lube, and backup hearing protection. And these are little Surefire hearing protection earbuds. And I like to carry these because I've been there at times on the range where my electronic ear pro is crapped out on me and not even a battery change will fix it. So it's always good to have backup ear pro on the range. And then if I'm running nods, I'll typically take a little handheld flashlight like this versus the one I typically carry, which is the Streamlight. So I'll take this little Vamp because it's got an IR head on it. So I'll use that for IR stuff if I'm working with night vision. So let me move this stuff out of the way and I'll talk about the larger backpack. Coffee break. All right. So this pile that I have over here is what I carry in a larger 3-day pack to supplement this stuff if I have the room. So some of these items that I went over in my chest rig, like this, would probably get moved over into a larger pack versus stuff like that. So anything that I really couldn't accommodate as well. This is typically mounted, our Turn-A-Quick pouch is typically mounted on a chest rig strap or mollied on the kit if I've got the room to do that. Or, you know, it's usually on a backpack strap like this. It's our quick release tourniquet pouch. And then, so what I would supplement this, I have a larger signal panel from Battle Systems that I have in my larger kit stuff. I've also got paracord. That's something that I'd love to have in a smaller kit, but it's typically not something I really think about because I really like the jute cordage we sell because it's got a stranded jute and you can use it for fire starting too. Better than any fire cord that's on the market, and I'm not just saying that because it's our product, but if you try lighting jute, like a little bundle of jute twine versus whatever comes out of that other cordage, you'll see that this is vastly superior to it. So it's science, you know, what do you want me to do? Anyway, carry that. Paracord's great for even like throwing up a drawing line or something like that. So there's a billion uses for paracord. I won't really get into that, but it's just always a good thing to have with you. And then I'll carry some larger chem lights if I can fit them. Again, talked about the Mora fire knife. And then I've got a hydration bladder. And one thing I didn't mention is in a smaller pack or something like a kit, I've got the room for a hydration bladder in the back. So typically my line 2 has a hydration bladder in it. And this is usually unfilled or it will be filled depending on where I'm going. So I might have, you know, 200 ounces of water versus 100 in a bladder. So, and then if it's a smaller pack, I've even put a Nalgene in there too. So it just really depends on what you're doing. And then I'll typically have some kind of rain gear with me. So this is Frog Togs. It fits down pretty small into a Ziploc. I really need to replace this with a waterproof bag, but I figure it's rain gear. It can get wet. I really need to put it on before the rain comes, but anyway, I like that stuff because it's compact. It's not the best. It's not super durable like normal rain gear would be. However, it's great in a pinch and it's packed small. And then I'll typically have some kind of cut down or a field stripped MRE with me. So I'll have some type of food and snacks and things like that. And then also I've got this push to talk antenna extender too in my kit. Sometimes I'll throw that in there, sometimes I won't. It just depends on how I'm running comms and stuff like that on whatever I'm doing. And then these are just some heavy duty zip ties. I'll leave that to your imagination on what you could use those for. If you've watched our videos, you know how to defeat those. However, I can't defeat these, so that's why I keep them. Anyway, so that takes care of pack. I know that was kind of a long answer, but I thought it would be kind of cool to go through this stuff, and I really wanted you guys to see, you know, a lot of people talk shit about people's chest rigs and stuff like that, and I get it. You know, when I'm not at the range, I really don't have a reason to run a chest rig. However, because of the utility and how everything's accessible right here, it just makes a lot of sense to me to run stuff in a chest rig. It's not because, you know, I want to play G.I. Joe or anything like that. It's very convenient. I know where all my kit is because that's what I use on the range. So it's kind of like train as you fight, that type of thing. So anyhow, Weaver, hope that answered your question. Okay, one of my personal favorite topics. Can you do something on proper foot care in the field? Why do I like foot care so much? Because so many people get it wrong. So this is from Greg on Twitter, and I thought I'd take an opportunity here to address proper foot care. This is from experience. This isn't some made up, make believe, I read it in a book kind of thing and I'm going to tell you about it. This is because I've walked literally 40 miles in a pair of boots and I know how to treat my feet so that I don't get blisters. So it's a big deal. First of all, proper footwear, proper footwear, proper footwear. That's number one on the list, right? So you need boots that are fit to you. You should have some time in them. They don't necessarily need to be broken in all the way, but if they're good boots, they don't really need a huge break-in period. So I like Loa Renegades. They're LLs, which means leather-lined. I swear by those things. It keeps the stink down because they're leather-lined. I have gone through 2 pairs of those, and believe it or not, they last forever, so I'm still on my second pair. And that's going on 8 years. And you really should, there's a lifespan of footwear that will degrade over time. However, I'm not in Gore-Tex, and that's the big thing. Like, get rid of Gore-Tex footwear. Now, this is my note to say, don't use Gore-Tex footwear, because all that's doing is it's not allowing the moisture that's building up in your foot to escape properly. And I get it. That's the whole Gore-Tex membrane. It allows moisture to get out and water not to get in. However, we're talking about your feet, and they sweat profusely. You're not going to be able to exfil all that sweat in the time that it takes. Your feet are going to get soaked, and even if you're wearing wool socks, which is my number 2 on the list, proper footwear, wool socks, and then this stuff. So let's go into it. If you start to get hot spots, you need to treat your hot spots, right? So pull over on the side of the road if you can. Hopefully you have the opportunity to do that, because if you don't, they will turn into blisters if you don't properly treat hot spots. So how do you do that? First of all, you need to make sure the area on your foot is clean. So I always carry alcohol pads. So basically this little kit right here, this little zip bag, is an add-on that I put inside my boo-boo kit from ITS, because even though there's alcohol pads in the boo-boo kit, I like to have some that are here with my little pre-cut strips of Leukotape, and I'll explain what that means in a second. So I also always carry shears with me, so if I need to cut Leukotape, I like to do that ahead of time. However, sometimes I'll just toss this in for other people that are with me. I'm not going to pre-cut strips for every single person I'm hanging out with, so I like to have this available for people. So the deal with pre-cut strips, I'm having trouble saying that. Anyway, the deal with this is that you want to round the edges. So you want to take, first of all, you want to get some larger sections, and I'll show you kind of an example of the different pieces that I cut. And this is, again, from experience. This is me knowing my feet and knowing where I get hot spots, and that's something you guys need to start identifying. So I have like 3 different sizes. I have this small size, which I guess is maybe 1.5 inches by 1 inch or something like that. And this typically is on the ball of my foot. So sometimes I'll get hot spots right there. And then this larger section is for the side of my foot. Sometimes the side of my foot will get a blister. And then if it gets bad and it needs to wrap around the heel, I have these larger strips cut for my heels. And then it wraps around to the sides too. So if I'm getting blisters in both places, which I have before, I've got that covered. And again, this is on releasable paper. I don't know if I mentioned that, but you want to use wax paper or like a parchment paper. And you want to make sure that even after you've stored this for a while, that it still releases. That's the big thing about this stuff, is if you're pre-cutting Leukotape, which comes in a big giant roll like that, you want to also round the edges, because what's going to happen is that if you have an edge on your Leukotape, when you put it on your foot, it's going to catch that edge. Your sock is going to rub against it, it'll peel up an edge, and then the Leukotape will come off and it won't do its job. So once it starts to come off and peel, that's bad news. You're going to have to replace it, and sometimes when you put that crap over a blister, it rips your blister off too, which is a big deal. Like, don't believe the hype of like lancing it and getting a needle, and just this is all you need. You need Leukotape, you need alcohol pads, you need some shears or pre-cut strips if you don't have shears with you, and a lot of them. You have to anticipate what you're going to need. And then I also have a little thing of Gold Bond. So this is kind of to dry my feet out if I need to. However, Leukotape will not stick to sweaty feet. So that's why you use the alcohol pad. It dries quick. If you've ever put alcohol on something, it evaporates the moisture really quick. So therefore, it makes the Leukotape stick. So that's why you need alcohol swabs. So those are my essentials for foot care. And again, you just have to treat hot spots. That's all there is to it. So stay on top of it. When you start getting a hot spot, put a piece of Leukotape on it. use alcohol pad first to make sure you clean it or it will not stick, and then it'll come off, and then it's pointless, right? So, and that really goes for moleskin too. If you swear by moleskin and you're a moleskin user, that's fine. I'm not gonna trash talk it. Don't. Even though we have it in our first aid kit, I would prefer Leukotape. However, a whole roll of this stuff is expensive and they don't sell it pre-cut. So, and again, even if it was pre-cut, it's not pre-cut to your foot. So then again, you know, buy a roll. It's like, I don't know, $8 or $9 on Amazon or something. It's really not much money. And invest in your feet a little bit. It's not going to cost you a lot to get proper footwear. So the alternative is to have a miserable day and not be able to hike. So there endeth my lesson on foot care. Okay, next question comes from Robert on Facebook. What's y'all's favorite, are you from Texas? What's y'all's favorite dive-capable watch that utilizes a NATO band? I'm just going to go ahead and talk like, hope you're good, Robert. Anyway, my favorite is actually the GPT one, which I'm wearing. This has a NATO band on it. And I think the NATO band is, I'm not sure where I got this. I want to say it's from Attack 2. It's not the one that came with it. I think I added this at a later time. Anyway, this is a pretty big watch. I don't remember what the millimeter is of the actual bezel, but it's worked really well for me. There's no date on it. However, it's just kind of a bomb-proof watch, and I don't know, what, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, maybe a year ago, I had a problem with it after 4 years, and I actually sent it in to CountyComm, where I got it at, and they sent me a brand new watch, which was really cool. And I tried not to do the whole customer service thing, like, hey, do you know who I am? My watch broke. They just literally did that out of just regular customer service too. I typically don't throw out who I am. I like to use email addresses that aren't associated with ITS. Anyway, there it is. So Rob has graciously loaned me his Seiko, which is a SKX 007. So this is his NATO band on his watch. His does have a date. He swears by this. I swear by this. There's two contrasting opinions. The GPT-1 is rated to 100 meters. Water resistance, I guess waterproof at that point. Waterproof, you can dive with it. It's dive rated. Just make sure on any dive watch you screw down the crown. That's the most important thing. Make sure your crown is down, not your fly. That's the more important. And what's this rated to? 200 meters? Yeah, so double the waterproofness, but you know what? If you're down 100 meters, bravo, because I mean, I think the deepest I've ever been is like 133 feet. So there it is, dive watches. Thanks for watching Questions Over Coffee. That's the right show that you're watching. I screwed it up a couple times. You won't see that, maybe in the outtakes. It's coming up, end of the year outtakes. Yeah, it's been a long day. Thanks for watching Questions Over Coffee. If you asked a question and I read your question, which was all three y'all, you're gonna get a bag of Avoca coffee. Avoca is our favorite. We're currently drinking Misty Valley, single origin coffee from your good Ethiopian coffee. And we'll send you out a bag for free. We'll hit you up for your address, so thanks a lot. Remember, if you have questions and you might want to get a free bag of coffee, send them in using the pound tag Gear Tasting on any social media network, and we will find them and answer them here on the show. Thanks again.